fucking awesome. Come on, it's gonna be fucking awesome. You know the words. It's gonna be fucking awesome. That's it, see. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Yeah!
Happy Saturday, Coolest Geeks. It is I, Jesse Blaze Snider, the Coolest Geek Alive, and I'm so excited for another positive Coolest Picks. You know, I did Reacher last weekend, and this weekend I am doing one of my favorite movies in recent years, Attack the Block. And I also decided that since I kind of want to talk about that, the Suicide Squad video game and some of those things, that maybe I'll just tack that on at the end, you know, because it's maybe a smaller conversation or something that I can have a little bit of a smaller conversation just in order to, you know, make this that much more compelling to people to click onto this episode, because I know sometimes people are like, it's a recommendation if you didn't want to see it before, but now maybe you'll click on the episode because you want to hear me talk about Suicide Squad and the difference between perversion and what was my stupid headline, perversion and subversion, and I'm going to talk about that later, but I'm going to make you wait because first I gotta talk about the greatness that is Attack the Block. And the first thing that I want to say about the greatness that is Attack the Block is I have 4 kids, 2 girls, 2 boys. My kids generally, my youngest daughter and my oldest son, who's 12, they really love horror, and they're like unflinching. My youngest daughter's 7. And, you know, but she's one of those people where she really gravitates towards it. So we've been more willing to, like, you know, show her a thing or two, because she really doesn't seem to process it badly. And, you know, she's kind of like, oh, fun, you know, which is kind of how I look at so many of these things. So we will, you know, let her watch some stuff that little kids her age usually won't watch, because she really does handle it well. Meanwhile, though, my son in between, he really doesn't do so well with, like, horror movies and things like that. That stuff kind of freaks him out, and, like, you know, he has a bit of a hard time with it. And my daughter Logan is and was like that as well. You know, she's a little older now, she's 14, so she can handle, you know, whatever. But Attack the Block is a sci-fi, you know, little part, you know, horror movie, sci-fi movie. I mean, the great thing about Attack the Block, and I talk about this all the time, you know, the greatest media of all time, like some of my favorite movies, say my top 3 favorite movies: The Princess Bride, Tombstone, Braveheart. What do all 3 of those movies have in common? They're all very well balanced. You know, think about Braveheart and think about all of the action, think about all of the memorable humor, and think about the really passionate, awesome romance and history and politics, and, like, there's so much shit in that movie. It's really, like, it's very well rounded. It's more than just a war movie, you know. It's got a lot of layers. Similarly, Tombstone. Again, the amazing humor of Tombstone, the amazing historical accuracy of Tombstone, all the things you sort of learn about the Old West, because this guy literally, like, you know, the guy who wrote the script, he got it all out of, like, dime store serial novels kind of stuff. You know, it's so well made and well crafted, and the history, you know, underlying it, and then you got, like, all these performances of character actors, and it's a Western, and, you know, it's action packed, and it's about love. There's a great romance between Kurt Russell and Diane Delaney that I always really resonated with, you know. And then there's this family angle. You know, his brothers, you know, it's really a movie about a family. You know, I was watching a thing with Kurt Russell breaking down his most iconic characters the other day. It was awesome, actually. There's a whole bunch of really cool insight he was given about, like, The Thing and John Carpenter's process. Cool stuff. What was I talking about? Because Kurt Russell's in another movie that we were going to talk about, Tombstone. So Kurt Russell described it as, you know, it's really a story about a family, and you know, and obviously, you know, he's got to get revenge for his family, but his family, and they, you know, they go there with their wives, and then also Tombstone is a movie about friendship, and I didn't know this, but man, it comes across on screen. The Tombstone, Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer, they became really good friends on the set of the movie, and they actually sometimes the actors will buy each other presents at the end, like for like a wrapping, and they ended up getting each other two very similar gifts. Kurt got him a plot in the Boot Hill Cemetery in the the Old West town where they were shooting or whatever, and Val got Wyatt an acre of land overlooking the Boot Hill Cemetery, and they didn't know that they were doing this for each other. And considering the sort of darkness of Doc Holliday and the lightness of Wyatt Earp and their friendship, it's such a fucking great movie. Again, these are my three favorite movies of all time. I mean, I haven't updated my list and like the think measure or whatever, but honestly, those are my three favorite movies: Braveheart, Tombstone, and then The Princess Bride, which I've talked about so many fucking times. But it's got everything: fencing, fighting, true love. You can do it like Peter Falk. Man. That's what makes a masterpiece for me. I think that there can be a lot of like sort of personal things that will do particular movies for certain people. But when it comes to things that just can be universally beloved, I mean, like Quentin Tarantino, for instance, somebody was comparing him to, I think it was Kurt Russell was comparing him to John Carpenter. And he said, but Quentin Tarantino has a little more fun and humor in his films. And yeah. And I mean, John Carpenter movies are amazing. And I mean, like the fucking unhinged humor underneath Big Trouble Little China. I mean, like Big Trouble Little China's, a favorite because of some of that fabulous balance that is really in the film. Practical effects and comedy and action and mysticism and fantasy. There's so many great elements to that movie, and that's what makes some of that stuff great. But Quentin Tarantino, definitely his hyper version of reality, whether it's the way he's chopping up his movies so that you're having the experience of watching it in like different time frames and utilizing whatever tools he has to make the experience surprising and shocking in one way or another. And these, are ways that I think ultimately, because he uses all of these elements at once, because he loves so many of these things, so he pulls in the what do you call it? I want to call it ninja fighting, like karate genre, the martial arts film genre, and he pulls in, the comedy stuff that he likes because he likes, certain type of dialogue that goes a certain way, and he likes these sorts of characters that are really pulpy, and he, there's so many elements going into his work. It creates a very dynamic and more balanced experience. The more you really lean into one genre or another, and I mean, you can kind of do that, like, and people do it all the time, and you can do it to great effect and make something that's, oh man, you see that horror movie, and it's like, it is of the genre, and you see the other thing, and it is of, but I really believe that the best things in any genre are the ones that don't play so close to their genre, and sometimes it's appropriate for the purity, but but oftentimes, like, think of something like the Evil Dead trilogy. Evil Dead 1 is like a pure horror movie. Army of Darkness is basically a slapstick comedy movie by the end of it. Evil Dead 2, however, it's got to be the most compelling in the series, because it just has this terrible, dark sense of humor. And it's in this twist between the horror genre and the comedy genre. The third movie is going to end on basically making it a comedy. And the first movie really comes from a very serious place. And the second movie is basically just like a remake of the first movie. But Evil Dead 2, it's got something. It does something. And what it's doing is it's juxtaposition. It's all well and good to like do like a really serious thing that just kind of goes in one direction, or very fun thing that goes in one direction, but it's something that's like very one note. But you get so much more out of people when you have a dynamic, when you take them from one high of, let's say, humor to a new low of the drama. You're like it's like, whoa. Whoa. It's like comedians love that, to be able to, like if they lose an audience and then they have to get the audience back, there's a bad experience. Somebody calls them a name and walks out of the room and it sucks all the energy out of the room all of a sudden. And now they have to get the audience back. Well, a really good movie isn't ever losing the audience. It's making the audience feel lost, and then it's bringing it back and making it feel lost, and it's bringing it back and making it feel lost. And really, those are the tools that make things the most dynamic and exciting, and get your blood pumping and your pulse racing. Just this pure juxtaposition of one emotion to its opposite, and vice versa, and other emotions that are within degrees of, you're fear, you're scared, you're happy, you're mad, whatever it might be, while you're watching a movie. And master filmmakers, they know exactly what they're doing. Somebody like Alfred Hitchcock, if you go watch a movie, like I haven't watched all of his films, but every time I do watch one, I'm always like hesitant. Every single time I've been hesitant to watch it, and I finally go, all right, it's like, it's on the list, one of the greatest movies of all time, whatever else. And I sit down, and I'm always astounded by how well crafted his movies are. And, the aesthetic isn't the most pleasing, and I'm not like, there's some aspects of it that like superficially make me want to deny it, but it's great. And Rear Window in particular is one that I would recommend, with what's his name, Jimmy Stewart from It's a Wonderful Life. Rear Window, really cool movie, suspenseful movie, and it makes you feel things. People forget, as they're like in in like a Hollywood office having a meeting, what the real important parts of this equation are. They'll think it's like, what's the twist, and what's this, and what's that. The coolest thing that was being talked about by Kurt Russell in that little interview clip, it's where I saw him talking about all these characters. He was talking about McCready from The Thing, and basically they were looking for the lead, and they couldn't find the lead, and he had basically a lot of good friends, like his roommate or his brother-in-law, somebody close to him, was working on the film, and he finally said, like, we were thinking about maybe asking you to take a look at the script. We've been having trouble getting the person. And Kurt said, oh, all right, because he does Disney movies, and he's done like a lot of big movies. He's like, okay, he's like, it's like a horror movie, like, kind of thing or whatever. And basically it was put to him, I guess at some point by John Carpenter, that no, like it would be meaningless, as a horror movie. It's a movie about paranoia. And if you can remember The Thing, that's absolutely what it is. It's a movie about paranoia. And by making a movie about paranoia where there are aliens and people, you really don't know who to trust, it amplifies that paranoia, the idea of paranoia, a metaphor for paranoia, whatever it is. It amplifies it to such a degree that you can learn so much more from it than you could normally learn from a drama about paranoia. So, like, see what this is? It's like we take this pedestrian human emotion, we mix that with a little science fiction, and now we've got something really dynamic. It's juxtaposition. The human drama of every day, but in this situation that will make it even more extreme. Right? So similarly, of that juxtaposition, which is just, two things ultimately, and that's enough. Juxtaposing two things. My sister had come up with the main, just simple idea, because I wanted her to dress us. My band Dilf USA, we did a Christmas music video called Countdown to Christmas, and I wanted her to dress us, like, for the video, like, and I was like, like rock and roll kind of Christmas or something. And she just like texted me back, or like hits me up, and she just goes, just do death metal makeup. And I was like, really? Just like that? Yeah. She was like, yeah, just like do Christmas and wear death metal face makeup. And it was the most brilliant, simple idea, because death metal makeup is a juxtaposition of Christmas. You don't expect a bunch of Christmas carolers to be walking around in death metal makeup. And the whole video was them slamming the door on our face because they weren't, didn't like us, didn't like the song, whatever it was. And this death metal makeup was the simplest solution to get that thing. And simplest solution is always the best idea. Overcomplicating a thing, you're watering down the soup. You never want to do that. You don't want to, make Superman just a little less great and his morality just a little less moral, and Batman just a little less cool and a little less, focused on what he's doing and a little less obsessed. And, every one of these things, it's just like your knife is getting duller and duller and duller and duller. And at a certain point, it won't pierce anybody's heart anymore. These characters pierce your heart because when they're done right, their power is sort of infinite. It's like a perfect, simple idea. We've got an idea of paranoia, and we've scooted it up to 11, as high as we possibly can make it with this thing. And then everything about the monsters and the whatever else, it gets skirted up to 11 because of the tension that's added to it from this real, tangible thing that people understand that is being juxtaposed in your script. Or just how entertained and happy you can really keep an audience when you're making something that is truly well-rounded and dynamic, like a Princess Bride or Braveheart or Tombstone. And and all these movies are relatively, different, pretty different from one another. But I do believe that they share, this commonality of just balance. Some balance and some dynamic, a little bit of everything goes a long way. A little bit of everything in the right places, right? And Attack the Block is in that kind of category. And I do not say this lightly. It is just such a like at the time seeing it was such a breath of fresh air, and I hadn't seen anything like it in a minute. It's so intimate, but yet has the promise of so many things. As I've talked about Reacher and all these things, I'm going to try to talk about this without really spoiling it. I'll spoil probably like the first 15 minutes of it because, the movie's been around for a little while, and I feel like if you haven't watched it at this point, it's because maybe you haven't got a compelling reason to do so. Came out in 2011. It's rated R. It's like an hour and a half. And directed by Joe Cornish and written by Joe Cornish. And Joe is super duper talented. I'm on his IMDb pulling up, some of his things. I haven't been following all of his recent career moves in in Hollywood because just you forget, you drop off of following people. But I've seen Joe's name many times, and when I remember when I looked into him at the time, I was like, oh, of course, this guy's great. He was one of the screenplay by credit for The Adventures of Tintin, which I don't know if anybody's seen The Adventures of Tintin, but it's really great. It's a really great movie. Worth a watch if you enjoy a good animated film, and so it's a really great adventure film. Also, we got a screenplay by and story by Ant-Man for Joe Cornish, and I think his humor and his sensibility is totally in Ant-Man. When you see Attack the Block, you'll know what I'm talking about. The rest of his catalog or whatever of stuff, like I don't know these things. I haven't watched any of these. The Adam and Joe Show, he had done 22 episodes. Making Little Britain 2 TV movie, Comedy Lab TV series, Blunder TV series, Hot Fuzz, The Fuzzball Rally. I don't know if he had anything to do with those things. Actor in Hot Fuzz, upcoming producer archive. Just try to see if there was anything else that I remember. He's got lots of thanks. Thanks in Baby Driver. Thanks in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Thanks in Paul. Thanks in The World's End. He's obviously good friends with the dude who did Baby Driver. What's that guy's name? What's that guy's name? And Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. He's the best. Edgar Wright. Yeah. So he's a buddy of Edgar Wright's. Edgar Wright is so damn talented, and so is Joe Cornish. Seriously, it is just the movie that he did. I was really bummed out. This was after Attack the Block. They gave him a lot of money, and they did a movie called The Kid Who Would Be King. It's pretty cool and worth checking out, but it was a little bit of like a bomb. for them, and I think probably derailed his career a little bit, because he is so good at what he does, and he really deserves to have money thrown at him and whatnot. But I think that project was just a little bit of a weird one. But The Kid Who Would Be King, not all bad. Attack the Block, though, is incredible. My kids all love it. My 12-year-old, my 14-year-old daughter, my 12-year-old son, my 9-year-old kind of scaredy cat son, my 7-year-old brave daughter. They love Attack the Block, and I just started putting it on because I was like, I gotta watch Attack the Block at some point. And literally every member of the family went, I'll watch that with you. Oh yeah, I'll watch that again with you. Except for Logan, who went, I just watched it yesterday. So that's how fucking cool this movie is. It's just such a fucking crowd-pleasing, fun, and great movie. It's a triumph. It's a triumph. All those stupid words that they use to describe, various film projects. This actually is that. This actually is a triumph. I really think you will agree when you see it, especially if you're a science fiction fan. The movie is produced by Edgar Wright, if that means anything to you. Of course, people who are fans of Edgar Wright, you know who I'm talking about. But Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, as I said, Shaun of the Dead, and The World's End. There's so many freaking movies he's made. Baby Driver, I like Baby Driver a lot. I'm just looking up these things to remind myself. He made one of the Grindhouse trailers. I remember that. And Hot Fuzz. Yeah, so many great movies. Anyway, Edgar Wright, he is right. Joe Cornish is awesome, and that was, I guess, ultimately how I kind of came to this movie. Got brought to my attention. The cast is loaded with people who I feel like deserved to show up in more places since, and I'm sure they probably are, but I haven't necessarily seen them anywhere except for the lead, who this film launched his career, which is John Boyega. When John Boyega was announced in the new Star Wars trilogy, people like me were freaking the fuck out, because in Attack the Block, there is a classic scene that I will not describe where John Boyega is holding a samurai sword. And he is just like a teenager. They're these hoodlums, this gang of teens robbing people and being jerks in South London. And, they live in these blocks of flats, these really, really tall, high-rise buildings where, the low-income people live. And the movie opens up with them mugging an innocent nurse. And and it's a really rough thing, and you really kind of detest them right from the beginning. You're just like, really, fuck these guys. But just very quickly, as the intrigue because basically it's like in the first bunch of minutes they do this terrible thing. They're in the midst of doing it, and then something crazy happens. A meteor comes, crashes through a car next to them, and blows a big hole in the car. And their leader, played by John Boyega, thinking, oh, well, now I can rob this car because the car's already broken into. Let me look in here. He goes into the car, and he's attacked by this little alien creature that scratches his face and runs off into the park. So now, even though we don't necessarily like these people, we do like that nurse. And they get all pumped up and chase this monster into the park to go kill it, because it's like some sort of alien invasion. And ultimately, you're following them around and these things, and you see that after they, take out the one, it pans up to the sky, and you see 1,000 of the same meteorite-looking things heading right for South London. So now they're carrying this thing around and they're showing it off to people. And even though you don't really like them because of this whole the what they just did, and like, you know, what they're fucking pieces of garbage, you know, you're slowly starting to get to know them. And you're getting to know them as friends. And this movie, man, like, they did such a good job. Like, Joe Cornish, like, to direct kids. My brother Cody is a brilliant director, and he's made a short film called Fool's Day. Everybody should check it out. I've recommended it before. But it's considered one of the greatest short films of all time. And, you know, part of that is that it's starring children. And he did a fucking amazing job, because working with children and animals can be very difficult. And Joe Cornish demonstrates here how brilliant he is. Working with these kids have a camaraderie and like a vibe between them. You really buy them as a group of friends. You also buy them as idiot, you know, criminals. Everything about the movie is authentic as fuck. And there's a great guest appearance by the larger man who's in Hot Fuzz, the best friend to the dude in Shaun of the Dead. You know, I forget that actor's name. Oh, you know what? I got him right here. I'll pull him up. What is his name? Come on, where's my guy? He should be on my list. Oh, Nick Frost, the great Nick Frost. Nick Frost got a little bit part in it. Really, really great. And all of the characters. There's a local pot smoker who, like, you know, buys from this dealer who kind of gets caught up in this stuff and stuck in the wrong neighborhood, and his character and stuff's great, and his contributions to the story are good and help to, you know, kind of give a little bit of framing to the narrative. And again, I'm trying not to get too deep into this stuff. I just want to give you enough to get you into what's going on. So, long story short, when the kids get up to the top of the block, and, like, you know, they bring their little monster up there and stuff. They don't know what they're gonna do with it. They're gonna bring it to the news. You know, they're like freaking out. They look out the window and they see it's raining monsters. Those monsters, you know, the monster that they just killed. So they let's go get weapons, and, like, let's go out there and, like, save the block from these little, you know, these little guys. You're like, you know, like, we killed one of them already. We can kill the rest of them. But when they go out to confront these monsters, these are significantly different. These are a much larger, much scarier, much more monstrous version of the thing that they killed, which was kind of dopey looking. And these things are gnarly. And they're actually really, really freaking cool. I guess I'll tell you about them a little bit. Or should I tell you about them? Or should I don't know. You know what? I'm going to leave it a mystery, but I'm just going to say they're very cool. They did a really specific thing with them, and it's very effective. It really works. It's subtle and simple, and just gets the point across. Like, you know, really, really just like the simplest version of the thing. So, you know, these kids, these teenagers going into their houses and grabbing their chains and their samurai sword and all these things to go out and fight these aliens, and then going, oh shit, what have we gotten ourselves into? We need to get back to the block, and being chased by these aliens. And that's basically, you know, like, getting you into the bulk of the movie. But it's exciting. It'll get you going right from the jump. The music is, like, built into the cut in a really wonderful way. I love films where, like, not just scoring, but songs and things that, you know, a little bit more like traditional music are built into the way the movie's cut. Love that so much, and there's lots of that going on in here. You've got Jodie Whittaker, who's a really great British actress, very sweet, kind of reminds you of like Rachel Weisz or something like that, but she's playing the nurse who they rob, and basically the nurse gets back not in cahoots, but like back stuck with these hoodlums multiple times, and they're able to, you know, sort of grow in one level or another. You know, the amazing thing about the movie really is that, and this is why it's great, you know, great in that same The Thing kind of way. One, it's really balanced. It has like a real well-rounded whatever, but also it uses this science fiction concept as an excuse to introduce you to a bunch of characters who you should, by rights, have no interest in. I don't want to hear about these guys. I don't care what happened to them. Look what they just did to that poor nurse. But you're like, what's going on with these aliens? And I wonder what's happening. And really, now what's going to happen? You know, like that. There you go. Now you're really using the story and using the genre and using all these things to amplify other situations where we can see and care about people who, you know, we wouldn't normally understand. They do a really simple thing with John Boyega's character, Moses, who, which just like when you hear Moses, like them talking to him, them calling him, they all like idolize him, like lift him up kind of thing. Like it's so cool. Their friendship dynamic and everything about it. I love it. I'm so charmed by the movie. My family's so charmed by the movie. I'm so glad like I got it on Movies Anywhere years ago when it had come out, because I liked it so much. And it's been a movie that we go back and we watch all the time. And I'll put it on in the background whenever, because I really enjoy it. And John Boyega is so badass as a freaking teenager. And everybody who was a fan of this movie was like, yes, make him a Jedi. Like, seriously, like we were so excited. The fact that they never made him a Jedi was like the biggest, like, blue balls. What the fuck? I wanted that. You blew it. So yeah, this thing where we're learning to love characters that are ultimately despicable as an audience. The Jodie Whittaker character is having that experience with us as an audience member. She's observing them at different moments and having a hard time not being able to admire them in one level or another for what they're doing in this very difficult situation. And just all of these things are just so brilliant to, you know, empathy and teaching us about people and teaching us about, you know, understanding each other. And they too, you know, go through a little bit of a journey of like, oh, you know, like, we didn't know you were a nurse. You know, like right early on in the movie, you go, you robbed a nurse. She was a nurse, Moses. It's like, nurses ain't got no money. Why always robbing poor people, Moses? The movie's so fucking good. There are these two little kids in the movie who are my favorite characters. His name's like freaking Psycho, and they have these nicknames. Oh, Props and Mayhem. Props and Mayhem. He's like, no one is ever gonna stop calling you Mayhem unless you stop being such a pussy. And like, they're really little kids. He's like, I'm Props and this is Mayhem. And then they're like, all right, Props and Mayhem. And then later, like, the one kid's crying and he's making fun of him. No one's gonna call you Mayhem unless you stop acting like such a pussy. Seriously, this movie is so quotable and so fucking fun. The bad guy kind of in it, besides the alien guy, kind of is, I mean, I'm not spoiling anything, but like they got a real nasty drug lord guy who they're working for, who's like Nick Frost's boss, and he's very cool, like convincing and like dark, and the movie's great, you know, and the gore level is, you know, survivable. There's some stuff that's like a shot or two that's like gory, but it's all like really livable. The special effects are very cool. The characters are just awesome and epic, and you know, just so much meaning. You really feel like you get to know these kids and their world, and like, I don't know how they'll do a sequel because of all the things that I won't spoil, but I would love it if they did. Oh man, I would love it if they did. But it would just be so different now. You know, if they were all like adults, it's like it's just so pure and wonderful, because they are these teenagers who are just in this transitional stage in their development, and how affected must they have been by this experience, and like, you know, this is life-changing. They get to be heroes, and like, it's just, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome. I don't know. I feel like, what else do I have to say about that, right? Can I move on to the other thing of the day? Attack the Block. Oh, I was just gonna say, I'd asked my daughter, what would you give it like, you know, a rating or whatever. And she said, like, if it was out of 5, she would give it like 4.5, which would be like a 9 out of 10. And I'd give it like, you know, at least like a 95. You know, I would say there are certain films that carry with them like a weight of some sort that seems like important, like Braveheart and what they were doing, and Tombstone, you know, the definitive moment in time and history, and The Princess Bride, a story of true love. And this movie does everything it does just spectacularly, but it's not quite as important. It's just super fun and super like, yay, amusing, and it's a great ride, but maybe it's not as like important as some other films or something like that you might find. But it's fucking awesome. It's so well done. And if you don't leave my review and go watch it soon with some people that you love and fucking laugh and enjoy, but watch it with some people that you love. Invite over some friends and watch it with some friends so you guys can all have the quotes and you know the scenes, and so you can reference it to some of your friends and they'll know what you're fucking referencing, because it is a cool, fun movie. And, you know, the kids clearly had a good time making it together. And I think that lends to the watching in the first place. You know, these kids are going to be movie stars. They're making a movie together, like dicking around and getting to, you know, act like they're tough kids and smoking pot and like, you know, all this shit. Like it's just so clear how much fun everybody was having. And you'll have fun too. You'll have fun too. You'll have fun, and everybody you know, your whole family will have fun. All right. So let's talk about this Suicide Squad video game that came and went. If you don't know the basics of like the recent history, is just this was essentially a follow-up moving into a new series to the Arkham Asylum trilogy, which is largely fucking the most incredible games of all time. You know, it dips a little bit in quality by the third installment, but the first 2 games are just amazing. Really, just like 2 of my favorite games of all time. I like, if you've never played Arkham Asylum and you're a Batman fan, holy shit, go enjoy that, and then play the second game with the even bigger world, and so fun, so much fun. Really, like some of the better scenes in the recent Scott Snyder Batman Superman movie were totally like cutscenes. Well, not even cutscenes. It was like gameplay from fucking Arkham Asylum, which is, it's so fun. There's the moves that they have in there to grab Batman off. Grab people off feet with like not batarangs, but these grappling hook, and pull them across the room, and putting on your radar sense, and you can see all I haven't played in a minute, so I won't do it justice to be able to properly describe all the interesting dynamics, but it's just so fun to glide around the city and grapple hook onto all the buildings and get into these different fights, because it's not I find some video games sometimes can be a little difficult. The fighting many people in the Batman game is like just fun and enjoyable, and like you see like 60 people approaching, you're like, yes. and like it'll never get old, because there's so many relatively simple moves and ways to like do these guys in. It's just it's so fun. It's so fun. So to say that I have a lot of affection for the Arkham Asylum trilogy, like that's an understatement. I'm over the moon for those games. Like I said, the third one drops off a little bit in quality, but the previous 2 like greatest games of all time, so we're sticking with that. The original teams that were working on this game seem to be stripped away for the spiritual successor or continuation of the universe for Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, which, let me just say right off the bat, like when I heard that Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, I was like, Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League. Whoa, that's like bold. So what are they going to do there? And I was like, well, it probably won't actually kill the Justice League. It'll probably be like fighting the Justice League or something. And then at a certain point, I thought, well, how interesting would it be actually if you set up the Justice League like the bosses, like the boss fight at the end of a level, but the Suicide Squad had to defeat the members of the Justice League, one by one, and it's like Batman has this much health bars, and like it's going to be really hard to kill Batman, but like that's what the player is the guy who's going to do it. Like that's kind of neat. Like that's kind of an interesting world, like where the superheroes are the bad guy from the perspective of the thing, and I'm like, I hope they make it really hard. I remember having this thought of like, I hope they make it really hard. Like it shouldn't be easy to defeat Batman or defeat Superman. And maybe even not. Maybe even you shouldn't kill them. Especially having it, since it's not like some alternate reality, it's actually the in-universe, like in the Arkham Asylum universe. Now you're going to kill that Batman that we like so much, which basically just ends the promise of what the series, like it basically puts a nail in the promise of more in any way, shape, or form. And there really shouldn't be any reason why we shouldn't eventually get more. But this is like, oh, well, now we've killed the Justice League in this universe. So this is the thing, though. What I'm describing here of like people fighting Batman and Superman, the Suicide Squad fighting Batman and Superman as the boss at the end of a level in a game about them, that is subversion. But what we have here in the game is perversion. We don't have the player fighting Batman and struggling hard to do so to defeat Batman. We have a cutscene where they've got Harley Quinn with Batman hogtied, mocking him before she puts a gun to his head and blows his brains out. We have a cutscene where Captain Boomerang is pissing on the dead remains of another superhero who we can't see off camera, and it turns into a fucking dick joke when somebody tries to say, hey, maybe that's not right. A lot of these things are things that you should have just like skipped over. Like it's like we don't have to see what happened right after that scene because it would disgust us. And you are playing a very dangerous game here, and you have to play it in a way that is really entertaining to the audience. Harley Quinn shooting a hogtied Batman in the face isn't entertaining or satisfying in any way, shape, or form. If like somebody's going to kill Batman, it should be the Joker. If somebody's going to kill Batman, it should be someone of significance to him. It should be hard fought, not here I am sitting here. I mean, like Batman doesn't try to move out of the way. He just stands there and lets her shoot him in the head point blank. I mean, he doesn't have a knife to cut those ropes. Like, I mean, like this scenario is just like so fuck you. Have you ever read a Batman comic? Like, who do you think Batman is? This doesn't happen to Batman because Batman is prepared for this sort of thing to happen to him. Like, I mean, there's so many stories that have demonstrated ways that he could have gotten out of that scenario. It's not even funny. And ultimately what it ends up being, because it's not in-game play and it's a cutscene of Harley Quinn and the Suicide Squad shooting Batman point blank in the head as he doesn't even fucking struggle or put up a fight. It's a statement. Or at least, if you didn't intend it to be, it ends up being one. This woman got Batman. Batman's not so tough. Batman's not so great. Your icons aren't so great. Your heroes aren't so great. These things are not so big and meaningful. Batman's not a big deal. Let's piss on him. No, fuck you. Fuck you for being so intimidated by our icons that you have to drag them all down to your petty level. It's lame as fuck. This is perversion. This is the perversion of the thing we love. The subversion thing that I was talking about, where like, hey, from the Suicide Squad's perspective, they're the bad guy, and maybe we don't necessarily kill them because, well, we don't want the fucking coming after us or whatever. Like there could have been all sorts of compelling ways to do this or do something or whatever. Could even had them kill Batman and then have him come back in the Lazarus pit. Like there's all sorts of kind of cool ways to approach some things, and you can do the subversion where we flip the thing, not take the thing into territory that actually queers and makes the audience uncomfortable. Case in point, Batman the Killing Joke, the animated version, was an adaptation of the classic Alan Moore, Brian Boland Batman the Killing Joke, one of my favorite comics of all time. It's a little prestige format, 60-page kind of thing, whatever. Fucking awesome. If you've never read Batman the Killing Joke, highly recommend it. It's collected in a bunch of things with like some of Alan Moore's greatest work. That's a good place to just get one of those things and read For the Man Who Has Everything and a whole bunch of other stuff. He's done a lot of his short work for DC was very good. So the original story is essentially about the Joker going after Commissioner Gordon to draw out Batman, and Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, getting caught in the middle of this vendetta, not as Batgirl, just as Barbara Gordon at her home, because her father's a police officer and the Joker came for him. And when she opens the door, she's shot in the spine, and she basically, after that in the comics for a long time, and I wish it was still true, she was in a wheelchair, and she became a character known as Oracle. And what a great character she was. What an inspiring thing for people who are handicapped, because she became an even better hero as Oracle than she ever was as Batgirl. And it was so natural and clear, and she became an ancillary character in other books like the Justice League because of her importance and what it was that she was doing, basically creating a network for these superheroes in a really positive way. Was quite cool. Anyway, that's like one of the most major moments that the Killing Joke's known for. And then Batman and Joker share a laugh after Joker has done all these terrible things, but they're just fucking exhausted and stuff. It's a lovely little story or whatever. It's dark and twisted and cool. Anyway, they went to go adapt that recently, and they decided to add, as I tell you, they always add romance to any Batman story. This time, the romance is with Batgirl, his young ward, best friend Jim Gordon's daughter. This is so fucked up, icky, irresponsible, and just yuck. This is a perversion, not a subversion. And why would you want to subvert the thing that you're adapting that's already a subversion? And the Killing Joke's one of the most classic things of all time. Well, let's pervert this. Let's have her all interested in this hot older man in a leather suit, and he's irresponsibly getting down with this freshly 18 chick willing to put on some rubber. And dude, gross. It's his friend, his most trusted confidant, Jim Gordon. It's his buddy's daughter. It's just so yuck. And again, it makes Batman about his dick and not about the mission. Batman is mission first. Dick comes so far second. But the behavior that you see in this Killing Joke thing, it queers your view of Batman and who Batman is in such yucky ways. I hate it. Recently, Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern from back in the day, they had him come out as gay, which isn't a big deal. In some ways, okay, and because it is a big deal, and really, there's no need to change the character, but sometimes it can be done in ways that are satisfying and don't ruffle any feathers, because it's just a little bit of a subversion as opposed to a perversion. Like case in point, at a certain point in time, they decided to make the Rawhide Kid gay, and they were doing it, for humor, but people forget, like, representation's representation. Having your lead front and center as a gay man, and it being okay that he's a gay man, even though it's funny, and it is funny when somebody who has a newer and a different lifestyle than the traditional lifestyle comes to the center stage and starts doing it the way that they would like to do it. It seems funny. It seems shocking. That's not a diss to gay people or anything. Like after the fact, years later, it was like this was like some sort of like insult to gay people because somebody was, but it's not. It's like, sort of nervous laughter. It's people going like, well, these people exist, and da 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 da, and like, how would that unfold like this? And haha, wouldn't that be so funny? Look, it's so different when it's from this perspective. And that's okay, because it starts with laughter, and then laughter leads to understanding. Trust me, it begins with laughter, and then the laughter makes us start to understand what we're looking at, and then you laugh less in the future because now it just is what it is. It's not funny. It is. It's my friend Bob's just like this guy. It just kind of becomes the thing that you know about. The way that it's done in comics recently has been really not great. Bobby Drake is Iceman. Is not a favorite of mine. The way he was adjusted, especially because his history, he was always like the most vocal bachelor of all of like the characters. Like, he has literally been characterized as the antithesis of this. And you could say that it's a subversion, but it's a perversion, because all of the people at home are attaching themselves to different characters based on that thing of like, oh, they're like me in one way or another. And they don't have to be the same race as you in order for you to do this. It's about the character, what the character wants. Characters for me in particular that I tend to have the most like gravitation towards are sidekick characters that are trying to live up to the mantle of the example they've been taught. Because my dad is a rock star, and I'm an artist too, and I want to live up to the example that I've been taught, right? So somebody like Nightwing or the Wally West Flash, those are two of my favorite characters of all time, because they're doing that thing that I really care about doing. So, most people, so many people that I know are Peter Parker fans or whatever, and because they relate to that character's journey in so many different ways. And usually speaking, for the people who are like latching onto these things, there's a lot of similarities to the experience for them, and it is a big jump when you take a character who's very interested in women, and now all of a sudden they're very interested in men, when essentially the fan base, the people who have imprinted on this character the most, are generally heterosexual men who are similarly feeling like, oh yeah, I love beautiful women, and like, I relate to this guy. So then essentially when you make this subversion, you're forcing all the other people who have put their eggs in this basket to face a lifestyle that is still on some level controversial on a mainstream level. And I don't mean like it's controversial, the idea of it. I mean like it's controversial of, case in point, I do this great self-deprecating, funny, I'm sorry, I don't know to compliment myself or whatever, but it really is. It's just a self-deprecating and funny thing that we do called Dilf on Dilf, where when Dilf USA plays, we bring out a rock star and we have them do fuck, marry, kill with a bunch of dilfs. So I pick a bunch of dilfs and then they have to pick fuck, marry, kill. And now, from the beginning, actually, I've had to do it with them, because every single time I try to ask these rock stars to do this, to like joke around in like a way where they're like acting like they're gay, they're very uncomfortable with it. They really like it, they're very nervous about how it might be perceived or whatever. Like, so I play the game now too, and they pick people for me. They always pick insane. Like they give me presidents and like the ugliest men of all time, and then I sit there making jokes about I gotta fuck one of these guys. What the, and everybody freaking laughs their asses off. I actually ended up getting gay bashed the last time I did it. I don't know how much of this set the guy saw, but we got like an angry letter where he was like calling us gay and all this stuff. But this is what I'm saying, like. There is a fragment of the audience who is triggered, and you got to look at it like that. They're triggered by this. It makes them uncomfortable. They can't exactly process these emotions. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, you go handle your shit. Go pray. Dude, look at yourself and look at all the things that you haven't processed and you can't process. And don't compare what they can't process and you can't process. Look at how fucking hard it is for you to process the shit that you can't process. Look at it. Look at your family relationships and just all the things in your life that aren't exactly in alignment. And then so quickly be like, why can't these men who are uncomfortable by the idea of gay sex, of a man coming onto them or whatever, like, it's ingrained in some people, sometimes in some really awful ways, unfortunately. I'm very comfortable in my sexuality and whatnot. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm even though I've talked about this before, I'm non-binary, but like I'm straight. Ultimately, at the end of the day, like but at the same time, I'm like, who knows what tomorrow might bring? Not that I'm like really interested, but I always, have sort of said like, well, that's kind of just like an arbitrary thing of like boys, girls, whatever. I can tell you that when I walk down the street, I'm like, oh my God, look at that girl and her boobies and her tushy. Like, yay. Like I like hips and I like, breasts and, childbearing sort of whatever. Like that's what I'm personally attracted to. But who knows? like it's sort of like there's like to say, oh, I don't do that is almost to suggest that like it's bad if you did. And I never felt that it was bad. So I was always sort of like, well, it's not my go-to, but you never know. Just to fuck with people actually also, because I think a lot of people sort of unreasonably are projecting out a lot of walls and making it like it's a bad thing and putting it up. But and we should challenge those things and those things in reasonable ways. But then there are like ways where you challenge them and you push too far and you break the thing. And like, challenging people to accept gay people by introducing more gay people into the content, cool. Challenging people to accept gay people by transforming traditionally straight characters into gay characters, no. That's fucked up. That's a shitty way to go about it, You know what it's like? And it's like you hear these stories, and I mean, like, they're just these shitty gay men, because it's just like, I believe most men are good, most women are good, but there are some shitty men, and in the gay community, they exist too. And they are these gay guys who purposefully go after straight guys. And like they consider it like a thing that they're going to like break these straight guys. They're going to get them to like open up to their gayness or whatever. And that is just some really fucked up and predatory behavior. Just like angling to like fool them and put them into this place where they're uncomfortable and like feeding off that energy. Like, oh my God, fuck those people. And that's what's happening here when you make somebody like Iceman a gay guy. Alan Scott, it bothered me a little bit less when they had first done this, because it was like it was the Earth 2 version of Alan Scott. They were making him gay, and Alan Scott has always had a softness about him, so there was like a certain thought that, well, maybe he could be, he's that real true blue solid hero, and maybe he's always kind of had feelings and trying to be true to himself in his older age and something like that. And I'm like, there could be a compelling story there to tell, and maybe that gives him a little bit more character in some level or whatever. But in general, my first thought was like, Well, his son's gay, and like he has a son and a daughter, and he's been married the whole time that I've read the comics that I've known about, in like a really nice relationship. And like, does this mean that he's been harboring feelings for men and wanting to be in a different sort of relationship for the entire existence of this character since the freaking 40s or 50s or whatever, since Alan Scott's been around, the original Green Lantern? Like, he's been a closeted homosexual. A closeted homosexual is not a good thing. You know, years ago, most of the gays on planet Earth were closeted because they didn't feel that they could come out and be themselves. And that was like the worst thing. And, you know, people who were, you know, your friends would be sitting there advising you, like, you got to be true to yourself, man. Like, you know, you got to just tell them, like, you know, like, I don't know, I can't tell. You know, so it was a very hard thing. You know, if anybody out there, if you have gay friends, you know, like that have gone through this where, you know, they didn't think their parents could understand, or they didn't think their friends could understand, you know, whatever it was, like, it's a real thing. You know, the people will get certain messaging and stuff from their family and feel so broken to be true to them. My aunt Roseanne, shout out to Aunt Roseanne. You know, she is gay and had such a difficult time being able to share that with anybody while her mother was alive, because her mother really had expressed some very, very firm beliefs, like or thoughts about that idea, you know, of being gay, or of what that meant, and you know, just basically freaked her out so badly that she didn't come out of the closet, as they say, until after my grandmother passed away, after her mother had passed away. And when she had passed away, she finally felt comfortable to be like, hey, this is who I am. Because she just was sort of hiding it from that one person in particular. And so often, you know, people are hiding that. But what is this? What's this story that I'm telling you? This is a tragedy. What a terrible way to live. To strongly feel one way and to be polarized with this strong feeling in your heart, and to not be able to express it, and to have to live a lie. So now the way it's rolled out with this Alan Scott Green Lantern, that's what he is. He's really very much a closeted homosexual. And in the recent stories, they have him hanging out with J. Edgar Hoover. They have sort of the implication that J. Edgar Hoover was extorting him for sex, was extorting him to form the Justice Society of America. So now, one of the truest heroes of the time of the heroes in World War II and all that stuff, one of the pillars of the superhero community, you know, amongst, you know, Green Lantern and the Flash, the Alan Grant Flash, and like the early characters, the characters that have made of the JSA, they have been, you know, the old guard Supermen. They are all the morally just and right people, the grandfathers you can look up to. He's been transformed into an illicit superhero celebrity prostitute who was forced into joining in the fight in World War II because of yucky shit with a secretly gay president, and he was secretly gay and banging the president while he was married this whole time with these kids. And like it's like, if this stuff was all above board, and like this was like, and his wife knew about it, and like there's a million different ways that maybe this could have been a little bit more acceptable or whatever, but like, oh my God, this is not subversion. This is perversion. You're perverting the thing. This Suicide Squad thing deserves to tank. It deserves to crash and burn. They brought in Batman. They brought in the voice of Batman, Kevin Conroy, and they had Kevin Conroy get killed in a cutscene in their stupid game. And the producers of this game aren't even the same production company that produced the other game. It's some new production company that's clearly very woke, and there's a lot of stupid little signs of that in some of the things that they've done and how they've rolled out these things. And I'm not even going to bother to get into it much further, but suffice to say, this shit sucks. Just completely sucks. I don't know how we've gotten here, and it seems like it's going to take so much to really dig us out of the muck at this point. With these things like DC properties and all this stuff, and fuck. I mean, the only thing we can do is not watch it and not engage with their shitty products, and that's what I'm doing. Just not going to engage with your shitty product anymore. And that's what I recommend you guys do too. Well, that's it, Coolest Geeks. I'm your passionate geek culture commentator, Jesse Blaze Snider. You can write to me at jesseblaze@jessesnider.com. I'm also on Twitter on Coolest Geek JBS. And, I love you so much. Please, I look forward to hearing from you, so do write me. And anyway, thank you for listening to my show. And I hope you join me again next Saturday and again this coming Wednesday for another ass-kicking episode of the Coolest Geek Alive. Peace laters. You've been listening to Coolest Geek Alive with me, your host, Jesse Blaze Snider. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more excellent geek culture content. Thanks for listening.
It's my favorite part. Isn't that heavy? I'll play that. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Coolest alive. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Stay with your tribe. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Revenge of the Geeks. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Week after weeks. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Laughing with you. It's gonna be fucking awesome. And crying sometimes too. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Spelling it out. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Making you shout. I'm a genius. I got lyrics coming out me bum for days. You like that? It's a kazoo solo. I played that too. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Talking some shit. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Living the shit. My voice is fucking awesome. Food in our mouth. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Get in the mouth. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Tell all your friends. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Call right or text. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Raising the bar. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Straight to the stars. It's gonna be fucking awesome. It's starting soon. Straight to the top. Awesome. Passing the moon. It's gonna be fucking awesome. On with the show. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Ready, set, go. It's going to be fucking awesome. Fucking awesome. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Just wait. You'll see. You'll all see.
The podcast playground.